your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. Our movie begins in the 21st century with Max living in a shelter after the Earth was destroyed due to the plague disease. Because life became very difficult, the rich people fled the planet and went to live in space in an advanced place called Elysium. During that time, a girl named Frey comes to live with Max in the same orphanage he is in. They start talking to each other, and Max tells her that his life's wish is to live in space, like in the song, because he heard that place is perfect and free of suffering. Years pass, and Max grows up, holding on to hope, and begins preparing himself to go to work. Every day on his way, he encounters a group of homeless people who think he's rich. They don't know that he's actually as poor as they are, maybe even worse. He then stands in line for the bus that will take him to work, just like his colleagues. But the local police stop him, and we discover that he has an extensive criminal history, but he decided to go straight and live honestly. However, the police insist on searching his bag, and because of this, they beat him and injure his hand, forcing it open. After all that, they find nothing in it and leave him lying on the ground before walking away. Max then goes to the hospital to treat his injury and finds people overcrowding the place due to the many illnesses they have. There he is surprised to see Frey, who tells him she works as a nurse at the hospital. She starts treating his wounds and jokingly asks him whose car he stole this time. Max laughs and explains to her that he has left all the trouble behind and is now working at Armadine, which is a production line for robotic equipment. At that moment, her colleague calls her because there are many cases in the hospital that need treatment due to the Earth's pollution. Max follows her and asks her to have lunch with him somewhere. At first, Frey refuses and explains that her life is very complicated, but to avoid upsetting him, she agrees to have coffee with him after her shift. Max is happy and leaves her, heading to the police station to clear his name regarding what happened and to demand compensation. However, the robotic officer informs him that he violated the laws and even attempted to assault the officer. Because of what he did, his parole period will be extended for another 8 months. Max is shocked and tries to argue, but the officer orders him to remain silent or else he will face another charge. At that moment, Max laughs and leaves to go to work instead of acting foolishly and getting himself into more trouble. At work, his boss calls him to scold him for being late. When he sees Max's injury, he considers giving him time off, but Max convinces him that he can work just fine and rushes to his workstation. Meanwhile, we see men working for a smuggler named Spider, who are helping people board a ship to take them to space for a very high fee. They mark each person's hand with a symbol to distinguish them from Earth residents. We learn that Spider has found a security loophole that allows him to make a huge profit from the spacecraft he transports. At the same time, we meet Delacour, who is the Secretary of Defense and responsible for Elysium security. She is speaking with the wealthy residents who live a luxurious life, while the people on Earth are living in misery. Suddenly, she receives a call from security informing her that unauthorized spacecraft are approaching their borders. Delacour quickly heads to the operations room and sends a warning to those ships, stating that they do not have permission and are prohibited from entering Elysium's airspace. The passengers are terrified but continue their journey in search of a better life. Delacour orders her team to contact a man named Roger, who is a secret agent for them living on Earth and carrying out their orders. We see Roger heading to an isolated location with a junk car, but when he opens it, we discover it contains highly advanced robotic equipment. Delacour monitors everything and orders Roger to fire missiles immediately. Roger executes the orders, and the missiles, with precise targeting, hit the first and second ships, destroying them. He feels devastated seeing the large number of casualties, but calms down slightly when he sees the last ship manage to evade the missile and enter. The passengers disembark quickly, overjoyed, while the wealthy residents panic and run away. Seeing this, Delacour orders her forces to arrest anyone who disembarks from that ship immediately. We see a mother carrying her sick daughter and entering a specific place where she places her in a device capable of curing all diseases. She activates it, and while this is happening, the military forces arrive at the ship and disembark with robotic soldiers who shoot at the people and tie them up. We return to the mother, who is overjoyed when her daughter wakes up and can finally walk again. Unfortunately, the local police arrive and arrest both the mother and her daughter. Delacour then orders her forces to return these people to Earth after arresting them all. They are indeed placed on another ship and sent back to where they came from. Meanwhile, we see Max returning from work and meeting his friend Julio, who asks him about what happened to his hand. Max tells him that the local police did it. Julio then urges him to return to stealing cars because he was very skilled at it. However, Max explains that he has quit for good and doesn't want to go back to prison, leaving Julio to return to his home. The next day, Max wakes up and heads to work as usual. He enters the robotic parts area where they are exposed to radiation pressure. Suddenly, the door malfunctions, and Max tries to fix it to continue his work. His boss arrives to check the problem and tells Max that he must enter to fix it if he doesn't want someone else to do it. Max is forced to enter, knowing it is very dangerous, but suddenly the door closes and the machine activates while he is inside. All the workers rush toward him to save him, but unfortunately, it is too late. The emergency robotic team arrives and pulls Max out after he is completely exposed to the machine. At that time, the factory owner, named John, is speaking with investors in Elysium. When he hears the alarm, he quickly goes to check the issue. Max regains consciousness, unable to move, and asks the robot what happened to him. The robot informs him that he was exposed to a lethal amount of radiation and has only 5 days left to live. While he is in shock, he notices his boss talking to John outside the room, explaining what happened. John instructs the boss to remove Max from the factory immediately and admit him to any hospital. Max signs a treatment release form, and they throw him out of the factory. Meanwhile, Delacour is in a meeting with her superior, discussing the 2 exploded ships and 64 civilians died because of what she did. He reminds her that they need to deal with migrants more calmly when they make mistakes. Not to mention that she acted on her own and gave orders to Roger, who we discover is involved in more than 15 violent crimes, in addition to rape, torture, and theft. Delacour tells him that she understands his words very well, but she informs him that they raided the facility they built illegally and had to face their punishment. The president gets angry at her words and warns her not to do it again or make any decision without consulting him, or else he will remove her from her position. Meanwhile, Roger continues to act with hostility toward humanity. However, he receives a message that enrages him when he sees it. He learns from it that he has been dismissed from his job and must return all the weapons in his possession. At this time, Max returns home, unable to walk, and collapses in the street. Julio happens to see him by chance, helps him, and takes him to his house. There he tries to understand what happened to him. Max tells him that he was exposed to deadly radiation and will die in 5 days. All they could do for him was give him a treatment to ease his pain, nothing more. Julio gives him the treatment and tries to comfort him, but Max tells him that the only thing that can save his life is the advanced equipment in Elysium. He explains that the only one who can get him to space is the smuggler Spider. But Julio tells him that to meet Spider, he would need a lot of money, and even if he gave him all his savings, it wouldn't be enough. At the same time, Frey is at the hospital with her daughter Matilda, who is suffering from a very serious illness. The supervisor comes to her and explains that they've done everything they can to help her daughter, but the hospital's board of directors has ordered that her treatment be completed at home. Frey tells him that she works all day and can't leave her sick daughter alone, but the supervisor doesn't care about her words, tells her it's her problem, and leaves. Meanwhile, Julio takes Max to meet Spider, who is very surprised to see him because they used to work together before Max retired. Max asks Spider for a ticket to travel to Elysium. Spider laughs at his request, mocks him, and sarcastically asks if he'd prefer a window seat or an aisle one. But Max insists he's serious and is even willing to work for him again and do anything he wants. Spider explains to him that every day, many people come to him with the same request, trying to escape. Max gets angry, tries to threaten him with a knife, and explains that he's been exposed to radiation and will die in 5 days. Spider then agrees to give him a ticket in exchange for completing a very dangerous mission. Without hesitation, Max agrees to the mission and goes with Spider to his secret operations room. There, Spider shows him a small device and tells him it's the only way to get him to Elysium. Max is very anxious when he sees it and asks for details about the mission. Spider explains that there's an investor from Elysium on Earth, and his mission is to kidnap him. Spider tells him that with this device, they'll extract important information from the investor's brain, such as bank account numbers, passwords, and login data, and bring it to him. Julio is shocked and pleads with Max not to agree and to find another solution, but Max ignores him and tells Spider that he's weak right now and needs something to help him with the mission. Spider brings him a device he's invented and explains that it will be connected to his nervous system to make him as strong as robotic machines. Meanwhile, John travels to space to meet Delacour. The moment she sees him, she says, "You've come here to renew your factory contract, right?" John is stunned by her cleverness and accompanies her to a secret meeting room. There, Delacorte reveals that she's not interested in his limited thinking and explains that his factory needs a lot of money to operate better than before. She tells him that he designed the Elysium system and was able to appoint a new president through his authority. John is shocked and says, "You want us to overthrow the entire organization?" Delacorte responds, "You're starting to get smart." She explains that in exchange for his actions, he'll receive benefits for the next 200 years and will have full authority in the organization alongside the new president. At this time, Spider takes Max to a human modification room to prepare him for the mission. Max appears very scared, so Julio tries to reassure him, promising to stay by his side. Spider's team starts the operation, breaking things and attaching screws to his head. Meanwhile, John is in his office, altering the system's programming and transferring all the data to his brain. Max regains consciousness as Spider's team tests the new components added to his body to ensure they work. Afterward, Max meets the team assigned to the mission with him and inspects the weapons they'll use. They then get into a vehicle and hide behind the factory. At the same time, John's secretary informs him that his plane is ready. John moves with his robotic guards and boards the private plane that will take him to Elysium. When Max sees him, he sets off a timed, self-detonating explosive to isolate John from the factory. They follow the vehicles until they reach a secluded area in the desert and blow up the plane's engine. At that moment, Delacorte receives information that an Elysium resident is in danger. She is shocked to learn that it's John. She quickly contacts Roger. Delacorte tells him that a citizen with highly classified information is on Earth and is being targeted by a gang. When Roger learns that the information is extremely sensitive, he asks her why she's contacting a suspended agent to retrieve something so critical. Naturally, he takes advantage of her need and tells her he can demand whatever he wants. His first condition is to be reinstated in his job. Delacorte agrees to all his conditions and informs him that she's assigned other agents to assist him in the mission. Before she can continue, Roger spots the plane and moves quickly. At this point, John's plane crashes outside the city, and he's lucky to survive. As soon as he sees Max's team's vehicles approaching, he orders the robotic guards to eliminate anyone near his plane. The robots emerge and fire projectiles at them. Max tries to engage them with his weapon, but unfortunately, it malfunctions. Delacorte is monitoring everything and identifies the gang attempting. John is kidnapped. During this time, Julio manages to repair Max's weapon, which he uses to destroy all the robots. They then head to the plane where John is to transfer the data from his brain, but suddenly another robot appears and engages with them to protect John. One of Max's team members fires a machine gun at it, but accidentally shoots John in the chest, nearly killing him. The robot then attacks Max, relentlessly hitting him to kill him. However, Max manages to overpower it in the end and removes its brain. Afterward, he goes to John and begins the process of transferring the data to Max's brain. At that moment, one of the team members notices a warplane approaching and warns Max that they need to hurry because tough times are ahead. Indeed, Roger uses his advanced weapons to take down Max's team one by one. Julio then takes Max in the car and tries to flee the area quickly, but Roger spots them and throws bombs at them, flipping their car. Roger then descends from the plane to go after Max, but Julio comes out and starts shooting at him to protect his friend. However, Roger counters and knocks him to the ground, finishing him off with his weapon. This enrages Max, who fires at Roger, but Roger activates a protective shield to defend himself from the bullets. When Max's weapon runs out of ammunition, he quickly flees the area, trying to escape. This angers Delacorte, who commands Roger to capture him immediately. Max is seen returning to the city, injured with a gunshot wound to his abdomen. He notices Roger's plane heading toward him and doesn't know what to do. Luckily, an old woman calls out to him and tells him to hide under her pig-filled cart. Roger uses a smart identification device to search for him, but fails to locate him, becoming very frustrated and ordering his men to return to the scene of the incident. Max emerges unsure of what to do as he becomes a fugitive pursued by the entire city. He decides to visit Frey, an old friend, but collapses on the way and loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Roger learns that the secret information in Max's brain is the key to the entire system. He sends drones into the city to locate and capture him. Delacorte orders her men to shut down all air traffic in the city until Max is captured and the data is retrieved from his brain. Spider is shocked to find his signal cut off, realizing Max is in danger. Elsewhere, Frey leaves the hospital and finds Max lying on the pavement. She rushes to him, asking what happened to him. When she tries to take him to the hospital for treatment, Max stops her, explaining that the entire city is after him and that he cannot enter the hospital. Frey takes him to her home and begins treating his wounds. She sees a drawing they made together as children and becomes deeply saddened, realizing he still ties his life to hers. The next day, Max wakes up, and Frey tries to understand what happened to him. He explains that he was exposed to deadly radiation at work and had to complete a mission for Spider to get to Elysium for treatment. However, things escalated and he became deeply entangled with the robotic police force. At that moment, Frey's daughter Matilda enters, and Max is shocked to realize Frey is married. He tells Frey he has to leave because he shouldn't have come in the first place. Frey then pleads with him to take Matilda to Elysium because she is in the final stages of leukemia. Max is shocked but explains that the police are searching for him everywhere and that they would all be killed if discovered. However, he promises her that if he manages to reach Elysium, he will take Matilda with him before leaving the place in a hurry. A drone plane approaches Max, and he tries to escape it. Roger receives information about Max's location and moves there immediately. Shortly after, Roger raids Frey's home, asking about the person who just left. Frey denies knowing where he went, saying he was injured, and she treated him before he left. Roger becomes enraged, assaults her, and takes her with him as leverage. Meanwhile, Max goes to Spider, who tells him he must have taken something extremely important because the entire airspace was shut down because of him. Max angrily responds that he took nothing and that his life has been ruined, demanding Spider get him to Elysium immediately. Spider laughs and explains that no one can currently go up because the flight system is down, with no clear idea of when it will be operational again. Spider then suggests they examine the data in Max's brain to understand why the airspace was closed. They begin the data transfer, and Spider is shocked by what he sees. He tells Max that they will keep hunting him until they retrieve the data. Max demands to know what kind of information would make them do this. He is shocked to learn that his brain contains a program capable of rebooting the entire Elysium system. Spider explains that whoever possesses this information can hack the entire system, granting everyone citizenship in Elysium. This, Spider says, could save Max's life and the lives of all the poor people, ending discrimination and enabling everyone to live a good life. However, Max is determined to leave immediately because his days are numbered. When he realizes Spider cannot help him, he becomes angry and decides to surrender to the authorities to save his own life. Spider tries to convince him that if the data falls into their hands, they will erase him from existence. Max ignores Spider's warnings, prompting Spider to place a tracking device on him to monitor his location. Max contacts Roger through a drone plane and tells him to come quickly if he wants the data in his brain. Roger arrives within seconds, but Max, being clever, holds a bomb in his hand and demands that Roger comply with all his requests or he will detonate it. Roger agrees, and Max demands to be taken to Elysium for treatment in exchange for the data. Roger laughs and agrees to all his demands. However, when Max boards the plane, he is shocked to find Roger has kidnapped Frey and her daughter and brought them along. Upon learning that Roger has captured Max, Delacour reopens the airspace to allow them to reach Elysium. Spider, realizing the airspace is open, uses the tracking device to locate Max and orders his men to prepare a ship to follow them. During this time, Max apologizes to Frey for dragging her into his troubles and vows to correct his mistake. He then attacks Roger's men, holding the bomb tightly in his hand. It falls from his hands, explodes on the plane, and kills Roger. At that moment, they lose control of the plane, which crashes onto one of the Elysium buildings and is destroyed. Delacour then orders her men to send the local police to arrest everyone on the destroyed plane. Meanwhile, Max regains consciousness and tries to escape with Frey and her daughter before they are captured. But suddenly, one of Roger's men attacks him to stop him. Frey takes her daughter and rushes to the advanced device to treat her. However, one of Roger's men follows her and, ignoring her daughter's treatment, electrocutes her with a stun gun until she loses consciousness. Elsewhere, Max is unable to fend off Roger's men and is also electrocuted with a stun gun and captured. After a while, Max wakes up to find himself tied up, with Delacour in front of him, reassuring herself with the doctor about the data in his brain. The doctor tells her that the data is intact, but extracting it would kill him. However, Delacour is indifferent to his life and orders the immediate extraction of all the data from his brain, while Frey and her daughter are taken to be detained. Elsewhere, Roger's men take him to the advanced device to treat him after the bomb exploded in his face. At that moment, Spider's ship arrives at Elysium, and he and his men disembark, quickly locating Max and heading toward him. Roger, meanwhile, regains consciousness after the device restores him to his original state and asks his men about Max. As they prepare to extract the data from Max, he manages to cut the rope binding him and attacks the doctors. He then interrogates one of them about where Frey and her daughter are being held and learns they are in the weapons depot. At the same time, Delacourt confronts Roger and scolds him for breaking the rules by entering a residential area with an unauthorized ship. She warns him that if the administration finds out, it could mean the end for both of them. Roger becomes enraged, breaks the glass in front of him, and apologizes for his actions, only to suddenly stab her in the neck with a broken glass shard. He declares himself the new leader of Elysium and throws her into the depot where Frey and her daughter are being held. He tells Frey that he was going to treat her daughter, but after what she did, he will ensure she is never treated. One of his men then throws a bomb into the control room, destroying it and causing chaos throughout Elysium. People panic and try to escape quickly. Frey wants to treat Delacourt, but she refuses and dies instantly. Meanwhile, Max tries to reach Frey but sees Spider and his men on the screens. He communicates with Spider via radio and asks if the data in his brain could make anyone a citizen of Elysium. Spider confirms it can, but says Max must reach him so the data can be extracted. They agree on a meeting point. Elsewhere, Roger's men outfit him with a new advanced mechanical suit. He then orders them to kill Frey and her daughter while he goes to find Max to take control of Elysium. At that moment, Max reaches the depot and attacks Roger's men before they can harm Frey and her daughter, using the strength of his own mechanical suit to overpower them. Suddenly, an armed man opens fire on Max, who dodges the bullets and grabs an advanced weapon, using it to neutralize the attacker. Max then takes Frey and her daughter to an elevator, instructing her to go to the advanced device to treat her daughter while he handles their pursuers. Spider and his men manage to reach the control room to extract the data from Max's brain. However, Roger intercepts them, throwing a bomb that kills one of Spider's men. Max tries to use his weapon to kill Roger, but it malfunctions, forcing him to escape with Spider. Roger chases them and uses the strength of his new mechanical suit to break through a reinforced door. By this point, Max is severely weakened from the lethal radiation he was exposed to. Unfortunately, Roger catches up to them and attacks. Max tries to fight back but fails. Spider attempts to help Max, but Roger proves too strong and stabs Spider in the arm. Summoning his last reserves of strength, Max attacks Roger and manages to stab him in the chest. The bloody battle continues and Max, now extremely weak from blood loss, decides to end it all. He jumps off a ledge, pulling the suit's control device from Roger's brain, disabling it, and then beats him relentlessly. Unbeknownst to Max, Roger has activated a bomb and tied it to himself, intending to kill them both. But Max cuts the grappling hook and throws Roger off the ledge, killing him. Meanwhile, Frey and her daughter rush to the advanced device to treat her daughter, accompanied by one of Spider's men for protection. Max and Spider enter the control room, and Max decides to sacrifice himself so that everyone can become citizens. Elysium. Despite security forces trying to stop them, they fail. Tragically, Max dies after successfully freeing his people from the suffering and disease they endured. Frey manages to treat her daughter after the system grants her authorization, and she is overjoyed to have her daughter back, healthy and free from suffering. Finally, we see Elysium's ships descending to Earth to transport the poor to Elysium, bringing the story to a close. If you enjoyed this summary, please like, comment, and share this video.